Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Your Knicks are very injured right now. Jalen Brunson questionable for Game 3. OG Anunoby already ruled out. What should the Knicks do? Should they maybe throw a game? We'll see next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube or the auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, because we're out here for you guys 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. This might be a 7-week this week because of how the schedule went. So definitely keep those notifications on so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at strick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And your favorite team has a lot of injuries. I don't know if you've heard, but the Knicks already without Julius Randle and Bojan Bogdanovic and Mitchell Robinson are now officially without OG Anunoby for Game 3 and possibly without Jalen Brunson for Game 3 against the Pacers. OG with the hamstring injury, Jalen Brunson with the foot injury that he sustained in Game 3. Gavin, the news is sort of coming in as well that Woj said on ESPN at some point that the Knicks are, and this is before the official injury report saying OG was out had come out, but it was saying, they're not expecting OG to be available for Game 3, and there's a decent possibility he's not ready to go for Game 4. Brunson, you were mentioning that Dr. Suterer on YouTube, who does all the breakdowns and everything, was saying that Brunson, his injury, whatever it may be, if it is what he thought it was, with his foot, basically is just sort of you're going to play through a little bit of pain for a while kind of injury, but maybe a little extra rest could help. Where are you at as far as what you think the Knicks should do to approach all these injuries going into this game?
I mean, first of all, I tweeted this out, but I just think it's kind of incredible to sit with the duality that's going on with the Knicks, where they're just one of the more snake-bitten teams in recent NBA history. Like outside of it almost feels like karmic retribution for Jalen being quote unquote out for the year in that was that against the Hawks? Was it against the Cavs? I think it was the Cavs game. I remember I was coming home from a broadcast. I was getting on a train somewhere deep in Long Island, and I got a text from you saying looks like Jalen's out for the year. And then I saw the injury, I saw the tweets, and I had the same thought, and I was like, oh, God. And I was just looking ahead to a year of my life without Jalen Brunson. It was heartbreaking. We got at the time what felt like a miracle. Where it was people like Dr. Suterer came out and been like, hold the phone. I don't actually think it's an ACL or an Achilles. And we got the official news and we were saved. And then the retribution for that. I mean, even before that happened, Randall, and then of course Bogdanovic, and then Mitch a second time, and now Anunoby, and this team that is clearly the best that the Knicks have had since the 90s. I think, we haven't really talked much about the other series in the East, Boston getting blown out the other night. It increasingly looks like a world where the Celtics are once again far and away the most talented team in basketball, but maybe don't have that killer instinct to take advantage of it. And there would have been an opening here for the Knicks to make the NBA Finals, and with the Denver Nuggets looking very iffy in the West, maybe even to win the NBA Finals. And now that is looking extremely dicey. We came into this series, we did a big preview pod with DJ Zulo, where DJ and I were both essentially saying all right, here's the thing at this point, you can't have one more injury. And instead the Knicks have two, Mitch out for the year. And even more importantly, OG Anunoby. My take on this is I think it's fairly unlikely we see him again in this series. If we do, it would be Game 6 or Game 7. Again, just my personal opinion based on what I've heard, not a doctor. So it's a tricky situation for the Knicks, and they're the most snake-bitten team I can remember in recent history, outside of maybe the Bucks who have lost Giannis 2 straight years. And also, they're blessed by the basketball gods, and they keep pulling out these games over and over again, make shot after shot after shot down the stretches of these games to pull them out. And you almost have this feeling like, as Nick Nurse put it last round, does nothing matter? Like, will they throw Daquan Jeffries out there for 40 minutes, and will he put up 25 a game? I mean, even Anunoby was coming off probably the best offensive half we've ever seen him play before he got hurt. So it's this weird thing where you almost just believe it's not going to matter. But it also feels like one injury too many.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to come down on the side of like maybe game 3 should just get punted regardless and just use it as a chance to let everybody take a breath, like you've done the work, you've defended home court, you're at the point where you're up 2-0, like, the odds greatly favor you. I forget what the number is. It's like 80% or more of all teams that have ever gone up 2-0 end up winning the series. Like, you're in good shape, just in terms of historical precedent here, if you can get healthy. And that's going to be the big issue here. And like, if Brunson is, can get 15% better, by just resting one game, and that OG's out regardless. And then you can say, all right, Hart and DiVincenzo and, Deuce and, Precious, we're going to throw, and Hartenstein, we're going to throw you guys out there for just enough minutes to keep you like loose and warm. So you can get like, 15 minutes or something. But otherwise, like, we're going to let like Daquan Jeffries and Jacob Toppin and Diakite and all these guys get, some minutes and just kind of say, screw it. Like, let's throw this game 3. Being up 2-1 is still great. I think that there's a great case for that. This would be a lot more if things had gone to a split in games 1 and 2, like if things had not worked out down the stretch of game 1, and you end up losing that game, then it's totally different calculus. I think then you're like, unfortunately you got to just throw everything at the wall and hope that something sticks and, try to go up 2-1 here since you didn't, take care of business at home. But I feel like there's a real case for, I hate to put it this way, but basically just throwing this game and letting everybody rest, because at this point, it just seems the most economical. Like, to your point, like if you go out there and you try to, this is where there might be a valid case for people saying, oh, well, Tibbs is burning them out now. And now, officially costing them a chance to win games later on. If he goes out there and says, oh, Brunson on a bum foot, we're going to have you play 45. Josh, you're playing a third straight game of 48. DiVincenzo, by the way, you're playing 48 now because we have OG out. Deuce, you're going to play like 47, 48 minutes. It's just it stacks up too much at a certain point, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off for this many games in a row. And I think maybe just treating this one like a pit stop might not be the worst idea.
Yeah, so I think first, because I realized I didn't do it when I was talking, we should qualify at least what Dr. Suter has said about Jalen Brunson. Again, all we've heard is sore foot, which is the Knicks go-to, and they don't want to tell you what the injury. Like, I feel like someone could be decapitated and they'd come out the next day and say, yeah, sore head, exactly.
Sore neck.
Yeah. Ned, do you remember in season 1? Spoilers, season 1 of Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, he was out for 6 seasons with a sore head, and we didn't see him. He was in Cancun. But anyways, so Jalen Brunson, what Dr. Suter said, it was a possible Liz Frank injury. So essentially a bone or ligament injury in the foot. And the severity depends on if it was that or if it was actually more of a muscle that got pulled. And if it was a muscle, then you're looking at a less severe outcome. If it was a ligament or a tendon, that is where there's a substantial concern that this is something that can linger throughout the rest of the playoffs. So to me, the equation is pretty simple. If they think Jalen Brunson can give it a go without aggravating the injury, and even let's just say he were to rest in this one, they were like, all right, well, we'll just come back a few days later and it'll be the same thing, then I'm all for the Knicks trying to win this game. I remember there's the same discourse I think it was 2019 when the Rockets went up 3-2 on the Warriors, and it wasn't a case of James Harden being hurt, but it was a case of him just being completely exhausted. They were saying, hey, do you just rest him game 6 on the road and come back, put all your eggs in the game 7 bag? And these series to me are just a little bit too short, especially when, to your point, the Knicks are up 2-0 and you go up 3-0, you are functionally ending this series. So if I think if you have Jalen Brunson, there is a way. We'll get more into the mechanics of that in the next segment, but essentially this Pacers defense that has just been horrific. And you follow people, you listen to people who cover this Pacers team year round. They are, for the most part, talking less about the 80 or so missed calls, according to Rick Carlisle. And they're more so talking about how this defense that transformed from the worst in basketball to pretty solidly average throughout the second half of the season post the Pascal Siakam trade has completely disintegrated against the Knicks, and how the Knicks in turn have actually played better offense throughout the playoffs than they have in the regular season. Does that go away without OG Anunoby? You could make that argument, but the lineup of Jalen, Deuce, Josh, Donte, and Hartenstein in the regular season, that was not a great stretch for the Knicks as a team. As a lineup, they had the second best net rating in all of basketball over the course of 14 games. It is a lineup you can win with. Precious Achiuwa obviously affects their spacing. You can win with him out there. They're good enough to beat this Pacers team. It's going to be hell. Indiana's probably going to put together their best effort of the season with their year functionally on the line. But I think there is merit to going all in on this game. If, on the other hand, Brunson is really, really dicey to play, and it's a situation where he'd played a do or die game, but otherwise wouldn't play, then I'm with you. Like if there's like value in keeping him out and substantial value in keeping him out, and he's dicey to play anyways, then why push Josh Hart, who's just on the brink of exhaustion? I think in the top 10 most minutes ever played in a 4-game stretch in NBA playoff history. At that point, I'm okay waving the white flag.
Yeah, I'll get more into my thoughts on that in a second, because I think I'm with you there. I do think there's some merit to also just going out there and seeing if they've got it in the game, with Brunson, and then if they go down big early, to just kind of say, pull the plug early on the game or whatever. But we'll get into some more talk on that in just a second, including what adjustments the Knicks could make with limited personnel when we get back into Locked On Knicks.
And we wanted to tell you about our good friends over at PrizePicks. So you might be at home asking, well, what is PrizePicks? PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You pick more or less than on 2 or more player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. So get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. I think PrizePicks is starting to catch up on it. I've just been pounding the overs on Josh Hart. You know how many minutes he's going to play. You know the expectations aren't typically high or extremely high in terms of rebounding, points, assists. He keeps punching over them over and over again. I think now with Anunoby out, it's almost hard to overstate what Josh Hart is capable of doing from a statistical standpoint. Donte DiVincenzo, obviously also hot. He's someone to put some money down on. So you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. So if you want to get into it, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
And we wanted to let you know about our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And hopefully your car doesn't get injured like the Knicks right now. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, and we're back in to keep talking through this injury-riddled Knicks team. And Gavin, I mentioned before the break, I think I'm with you. I think that's ultimately where I come down. I wanted to present the punt argument for devil's advocate's sake, but
Sure.
if I'm putting on my rational hat here, if Jalen Brunson can go and he says that he's good, at a certain point, you're like, well, if you're good to go this game, like then you're good to go any game, and these players know their body better than anyone. I don't think he would be shy at this point about saying, hey, I think I'm out for this game. Like, let's strategize around that. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go at my top, level or whatever. But if he says that he's good to go, you kind of just got to trust him. And if Josh Hart says he's good to go for another 48 minutes, you got to trust him and, just kind of go with it. Because why would you not? This team is doing so well. There's also the case to be made that like the quicker you close out this series, Boston looks like they're in for a dogfight now. So there might be a 7-game series on the other side. I was not expecting them to go 1-1 in their first 2 games, in that series against the Cavs. So maybe there's a little more going on there than we realized too. And that series will take 6, 7, whatever games, and every game that you eliminate from this series, then at that point is just more rest you get to potentially go and face the Celtics or the Cavs, whoever makes it out of that part of the bracket. And if it's the Cavs, like you're just licking your lips and going, man, there might be a finals appearance in our future here, like that, because the Knicks obviously match up very well against them. So yeah, I think for this game, you throw Brunson out there if he's good to go, because with him out there, you always have a chance to win. Like, OG made a great impact last game and, helped keep the Knicks afloat without Brunson in there in the first half. But when Brunson came back, I mean, he was the difference. Like, OG did not have as big of an impact in the second half of last game, at least not from a scoring perspective, so you're not like, if you're getting that out of Brunson throughout the whole game, and then, you're not getting OG scoring impact, you just kind of have to make up for it on the defensive end. And if Hart's up to the task on Siakam, and, you can throw Deuce into more minutes now onto Halliburton, it's kind of going to be on him, like based off how things are going in the first 2 series. Like, if Deuce steps in and plays like mini OG again, you've definitely got a chance. Like he's played like mini OG before and done great in the back half of this season, when OG was hurt. So, that starting lineup had great success. Like the kind of going small lineup of Brunson, Deuce, Donte, Hart, and Hartenstein. I mean, that won the Knicks a lot of games down the stretch of the season. And the issue then just becomes, all right, well, who's your 2 off the bench then? It's going to be Precious to take up the big man minutes, and then Alec Burks probably, but if he continues playing how he has, maybe give Shake Milton his first look, because we've seen, from historical precedent that Shake does well with minutes. If you can guarantee him like 20 minutes and he can get in a rhythm, maybe he wins you a game by getting a little hot, or something. But you sort of say the same for Alec Burks at this point. So that's sort of what it comes down to. But I think first and foremost, it's going to come to Deuce McBride and like whether he can step into that starting role and start having an impact like he had in the first series, rather than what he's done so far in the first 2 games of this series.
Yeah, I think, look, I wouldn't hate the Knicks coming out with that starting lineup. Knowing Tom Thibodeau at this point, I'd be shocked if Precious Achiuwa doesn't start this game, and that's the direction they go, just because I think he doesn't want to open the game putting Josh Hart on Precious Achiuwa. I think he knows that just isn't sustainable, and Hart is tough. He's incredibly strong. He's going to battle. It's not going to be a case of Precious getting right to the rim and dunking every time. But what Precious can do, what Precious has even done on OG Anunoby, his 7'2" wingspan, is get pretty decent position and then just shoot that fadeaway jumper. And I think against Josh Hart, the more time you give Precious in that matchup, or not Precious, the more time you give Pascal in that matchup, the more comfortable he's going to get, the more he's going to be able to shoot over him. And look, Precious Achiuwa did not look particularly good guarding Pascal Siakam. Like I thought it was, despite the late offensive rebounds and the fact that it was 4 for 5 from the field, I thought it was a pretty crap game from Precious in the first extended minutes we've seen from him since game 4 against Philly, when he was so good in that fourth quarter defensively. Like, he didn't look focused to me. It didn't look like he had the requisite energy you need. And hopefully with a game to mentally prepare and say, hey, like, I am going to play a big role. I know I'm going to be out there for probably 35 minutes, almost no matter what. Hopefully he looks better in this one, and he's a little bit more focused. And offensively, I mean, down the stretch of the year, I thought it looked pretty poor in general when he was forced to play power forward after he excelled as a rim runner playing center, and he should get. I mean, I think he will get some backup 5 minutes in this game unless the Knicks ultimately want to brush off Jericho Sims, which is also an option, and another guy you can put into the mix in this rotation. Precious didn't really kill the Knicks in the fourth quarter. Like when he was playing down the stretch of the game against the Pacers, like it almost didn't seem to matter that Indiana at points like was initially honoring him and then like, screw this, we're totally leaving this guy, led to him getting into some decent position for offensive rebounds. And there were times where Brunson would just work his way through two guys, or they would trap Brunson and they would play nominally 4-on-3, but almost like 3-on-3 because Precious was just sort of stuck on the edge. There's going to be a lot of room for him to crash, a lot of room for him to impact this game on the offensive glass. And then hopefully they get to that lineup with Brunson, Deuce, Donte, Hart, and Hartenstein for the bench minutes. And maybe you plug in Burks for Donte and give him a rest, or God forbid Burks for Hart. That would be a disaster on defense. But there's stuff you can do. I just kind of wonder how much Tibbs is going to be willing to go small versus leaning into what he's super comfortable with and going super big.
Yeah, it is kind of ironic that the Pacers run a very fast team, but like I've said this a few times throughout this series already, like they run a fast pace and everything, but they actually run very traditional size lineups. Like they are very Tibbsian in the fact that, you know, they have two centers that swap for each other and they have two power forwards that swap for each other. And like they're very rigid about that. So they don't actually offer you a ton of room to go small, except for the fact that, you know, Obi Toppin, as we know, as Knicks fans, doesn't exactly play enormous, you know, so you can kind of, and same with Siakam, although he's a rebounding machine if you let him be. But yeah, we could talk more about that in just a sec if the Knicks can afford to go small, and just some final notes on this game and series before we wrap up here in just a second.
But first, it's game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, technical foul. We already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. Monopoly Go, you can team with friends for time tournaments, whether you work together or build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Find a Pacers friend. I'm going to go play with Tony East and taunt him while I smash their hopes of getting to the conference finals. Or Jalen Brunson does it for me. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Panchico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, we are back here on Locked On Knicks. Alex, I guess I just wanted to get into like some of the pure basketball, because this is a fun series. This is an interesting series. And to me, in terms of adjustments, because we've sort of talked through the Knicks adjustments, and they're mostly just who's going to be on the court for the team. I'm wondering if there's anything Indiana can do. And in particular, I'm wondering if they lean more into TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin, who have both been astoundingly good in this series. And Obi Toppin, I mean, it's been painful with the Knicks. Obviously, moving on from him was a big part of them feeling comfortable from a cap perspective in signing Donte DiVincenzo, but he's been exceptional. Hit 20 points in 20 minutes last game. The Knicks have not totally had an answer for him. McConnell, 10 points, 12 assists in 23 minutes. Pretty clearly played the best defense on Jalen Brunson of any of Indiana's options. I'm wondering if Rick Carlisle is going to lean a little bit more into those two guys. And if you see any adjustments the Knicks can have to contain them, because the big thing I've seen is on paper, Deuce McBride is pretty much the perfect, like if you were going to build someone in the NBA to guard TJ McConnell, it might be Quentin Grimes, because he's very similar to Maxey last round. He's consistently been one of the best guarding him. But if you're going to build someone like sized, it would be Deuce. And if you want, on the flip side, if you wanted someone for Deuce to contain, it would be someone like TJ McConnell, not bigger than him, same height as him, someone whose strength is speed, which is nominally Deuce's strength. And yet going back to the regular season, TJ McConnell has just torched that matchup for whatever reason. And it feels like no one else in the Knicks really has far better luck in terms of consistently stopping him.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I think, you know, if OG's out, you're going to get a bigger dose of Deuce. And whether you put Deuce on, I mean, I think you could also throw Deuce on Halliburton in theory. I mean, I think I don't mean this as disrespect to TJ McConnell. I know that he's had like some form of impact, but ultimately, if TJ McConnell is the guy beating you, you're gonna just lose. Like, he's not an offensive force. You know what I mean? Like he'll get assists and whatever. He's good at dribble drive penetration, but he's not the absolute best shot finisher. He's definitely not a great 3-point shooter. So like if you can try to force him into trying to become a shooter, if he beats you from 3, then just wash your hands of it. Good game, whatever. Like it's bound to happen every once in a while. And like the Knicks are, always kind of play that style of they definitely match up scout who is the bad 3-point shooters on the other team. And I mean, much like teams have done to them with Josh Hart and stuff over the years, over like the last 2 years, they identify guys that they think are minus players from the 3-point line and say those guys could shoot as many as they want. And I think that's what they'll try to do with McConnell. Now it's on Deuce then to contain the dribble drive penetration, which if he's playing at his best, I think he can. To your point, like McConnell's not bigger than him, and Deuce has that extra long wingspan. He seems like he's pretty well built to take care of that matchup and keep McConnell contained and all that. But maybe if he's not able to do that, then I think the Knicks are probably in trouble, unless of course Rick Carlisle just doesn't play more minutes again, which would be great for the Knicks, if he just decides to not play the guy that was having a really big impact in the last game. Perhaps Rick Carlisle can submit 20 complaints about, not playing his own players or something. Maybe that's part of his strategy to try to woo the league.
It was certainly a missed call in the game to not play them more.
Yeah, it was a missed call. That was one of the 75 or however many he put in from.
He said, "You know what? I want to be objective. This one was on me, guys. My bad."
Yeah, but I got to submit it anyway. It was a missed call regardless.
Just being honest, just to show you all the other 78 have legitimacies.
Can you imagine like 10 of them are like there were 10 stoppages of play and I didn't put TJ McConnell in for any of them. So let's add that to the list.
Yeah.
There's 8 stoppages of play where I never put Obi Toppin, and we're up to 18 already. There's so many missed calls in this game.
If you feel like you need to get to 79, that's how you do it.
That's how you do it, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, otherwise from a Knicks perspective, like I'm trying to think of how you approach this. If you want to try to even give Brunson a little bit of time off during the game, if you want to take him out for even 5 minutes, if he is healthy, like I'm trying to think of how to approach things from an offensive perspective too, because without OG, I think you're missing a pretty key part of what was able to keep the Knicks afloat in the last game.
Do you think those are just Burke's lottery minutes? Like if he gets hot, great. Like, and you're at a point where you're like, you have to just sort of buy the lottery ticket and bet on it.
I guess. I mean, I feel like the Knicks are definitely not doing a full run practice at this point, but I do feel like they should do at least an on-court walkthrough before this game, just to try to drill into Burks' head. Like, can you just play a little more like you did a couple years ago when you were on this team? Like, you were a really key part of when this team was good before. Like, are you really not able to, figure this out and, go out there and be like a spot up shooter?
And he shot great this year is what I think the Knicks thought they were getting, right?
Like, yeah. And then he came to the Knicks and it's just been like, I can't shake this persona from Detroit where I was just like the old man gunner there, like amongst these children in Detroit. Like,
yeah.
It's like he just thought that he was meant to take all the shots and absorb all the usage. And I just don't, it's just not what he's going to be on the Knicks. Even if he's coming in this game and playing 20 minutes off the bench, they're not going to want him to be just going down there and shooting every single time. But that seems to just like something's like broken in his brain. But I do think if you could talk him into like, hey man, be like, play more sort of like Donte in a way, like hit some spot up shots. We can work you off of like some screens up top, to free you up for some threes, but we don't necessarily want you shooting every time you touch the ball. Like just be open to passing it or hitting a cutter or something. I think there could be some useful minutes from him there because we've seen that he can be a pretty decent defender too. Like, I don't think that he would lose you the game on defense. There was a time once upon a time in, I think it was the 21-22 season at the early stages before the Burks at point guard experiment, where we were saying like Burks might be the best wing defender on this team in lieu of Reggie Bullock, who had left, that offseason. Like, we were sitting there being like, man, yeah, I can kind of see it. Like, he's really crushing it with these one-on-one matchups on defense. Like, he's gotten, 2 years older now, but maybe he can harness a bit of that again. But yeah, I think maybe it does just come down to, like, without OG, you might just be banking on, if you play everybody else these next 2 games, Burks is going to have to get hot one of those 2 games for you to come out of this Indiana part of this, like, up 3-1.
And that's sort of the thing, right? You just ideally you win game 3 and you get to that point where Indy is maybe a little crushed and doesn't totally show up for game 4, but you have to find a way to win one of these 2 games. You go back to MSG, chance to close things out. I think there's a great chance the Knicks do it. They've, like, this series, to me, if it were not for Anunoby getting hurt, and despite the fact that the Knicks, by all accounts, probably should have lost game 1, I would feel really, really good about it, because you got Obi Toppin scalding hot again. You got TJ McConnell having a great game, even if it wasn't a great second half. You survived Halliburton dropping 34 points on your head, and yet you were still able to pretty comfortably win game 2. So in a world with no injury, like, I would just sort of feel like this isn't the Philly series. This is probably the first round series the Knicks should have had. Now, without him and with Brunson potentially hobbled, and especially one thing we didn't mention, Brian Suter noting, like, it is the type of injury that could affect him laterally and maybe make him an even bigger target on defense. All of a sudden, this is a series. This is a conversation again, but you come back home up 3-1, I will feel pretty confident in the Knicks' ability to close things out if Jalen Brunson is anywhere close to like 85% healthy. You just have to find a way to win one. Hopefully the Knicks can do it. We'll have you covered. He's Alex. I'm Gavin. This has been Locked On Knicks, and we'll talk to you tonight after game 3. Until then, be good. See you soon on Locked On Knicks.